Hi, everyone. I'm Tina van Leuven, your practical joy alchemist and your host for the Joy Evolution Summit, where we have the opportunity to spend amazing time with some of the most delightful joy beacons from around the world. And today, I am very excited about spending sacred time with Mark Mariner, who's a couples coach and soul coach. As a counselor and coach in private practice for over 26 years, he has had the joy of helping many individuals and couples. He works with motivated clients who are ready to break out of survival functioning and codependency and take them far into their growth and healing. With the help of some highly refined tools, he teaches them how to experience a whole new way of living from their heart. And these tools instill a feeling of aliveness and harmony. He possesses a deeply caring relational presence that allows people to feel safe and trusting with him. And that allows his clients to open up and enter fully into their true positivity at the heart of themselves. And today we're going to be talking about Mark's journey to joy and how deep joy can endure in your relationships. I love this topic. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Tina.
So
Great to
great.
be here with you.
You too. Oh, so exciting. I would love for you to share a little bit with us about your journey to joy. In our conversations here in our summit, we've been exploring what it takes to go from knowing about joy to really embodying it, bringing it into the body and living from that space and the highs and the lows that accompany that journey. So I'd love for you to
Sure.
share a bit about what has your journey to joy been like?
Well, the first thing that jumps right out at me, Tina, when you ask that question is the movement that happened when I was a lawyer for 10 years before I did this kind of work, and not a happy one, a miserable one. And I just didn't know, because I made such a good living and because it's so well recognized and credible, there was this part of me that was having a hard time trusting that this wasn't my space. And so it was a long process of finally kind of figuring out, and it really was it was a spiritual kind of moment that kind of led me to sort of eventually say to this law firm down in Richmond, Virginia, I'm leaving and I'm going over to Europe and I'm going to be spending some time over in Europe in a community. And I just remember when I got up enough strength and determination to go in and tell these people who, of course, didn't understand a thing I was saying to them, walking out of that law firm, skipping up the hill, it was such delight and joy. I did it. I said yes. I was free again. I said yes to my life, even though rationally, financially, on so many levels it seemed so nonsensical. But in that moment, I knew that I'd found joy again. So that was really the moment that really popped into my brain. And then the next moment that showed up for me was, so that was like in 1982 when I did that. And the next moment was in 1986. And it was the first weekend that Marcia, my current wife, and I had together. We went off to this beautiful little area. Now, we live in Massachusetts, and we went off to this beautiful area on Cape Cod called Provincetown, and just went up to that town and spent the weekend. And I remember we got there on a Friday. The very first day we were on the beach on Saturday, and I was running by myself along the beach, and my heart just started bursting with joy, realizing that this woman that I was with was just, I just had this feeling that she was just a gift for me. And I just couldn't believe this gift had been given to me. So I was just running down the beach, and it actually hurt, the heart just pounding, but it was also just filled with this joy that I hadn't ever experienced before. So those are the two moments, when you talk about my journey, a couple of those moments that just showed up for me.
Beautiful. Yeah. And how would you say that, having had those experiences, because I'm sure that many in our audience can relate to this, whether in their own life or they've witnessed it in the lives of those they love. How many people pursue a career based on what they have been told would make sense, yet
Yeah,
is not necessarily what really lights you up? And then to have the courage to let that go and to really, really, really trust in yourself, in your heart enough to
yeah,
guide you. Oh,
yes. Major turning point in my life. I
yeah.
kind of left the matrix, left, all the storyline of what was supposed to make me happy and succeed in life. At that point, I'd had enough of an experience of knowing that what was supposed to make me happy wasn't making me happy.
Mm,
And that was the movement of turning inward and starting to listen to another place inside that I had never known existed, which was the place of my heart, the place of intuition, place of trusting that inner voice rather than what the outside world was telling me is what I needed. So it was really
mm.
a critical turning point for me.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that, Mark. And then you meeting Marsha, and how do you feel like all these experiences of your journey to joy, that led to you doing what you do now, which is really helping people in their relationships?
Yes, yes. Well, Marcia was really a critical uh, instrument for me because after I left that law firm, I didn't know what I was going to do. Um, and I went and spent some time in the community over in France for a year and a half. And I started searching and I thought, well, maybe I should be a teacher. But while I was in that search, what I would do is I'd pick up law jobs because I had a pretty good now experience. I was a trial lawyer, so I had some pretty good experience that was marketable. So I would pick up these law jobs to survive, to make money. And then at one point, Marcia at that point had already kind of moved into an orientation towards psychology and counseling. And she said to me at one point, Mark, why don't you think about psychology? You'd make a great counselor. And I went, I don't know. So I just kind of went in one ear, went out the other. Somewhere it sort of filtered, and then I did some volunteer teaching, and then I had some opportunities to actually do some one-on-one helping in a very informal way. And I thought, oh, I really like this. This is fun. I could feel something stirring. And then um, all the while still kind of practicing law to kind of keep my life together and working and paying the bills. And then eventually I ended up going to this, thought, well, maybe I should try to, you know, I went to this graduate school in counseling in uh, in Boston, and I just went to the information evening, and I just went in, and it was a very holistic, very spiritual, not a real academic kind of diploma and presentation. And I went in and I said, I got to go there and I got to try this. And
Mm.
so I put my foot in there and I started taking these classes and I started doing some of the internships. And it just, every step of the way, it was like, yes, 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 this is it. This is me. And I just loved the program that I went in, and that's how it started. That's how my whole practice started in 19. Started school in that Marcia and I got married in '88. I started my counseling degree in 1990, and in the 92, 93, I graduated with a master's in counseling, and then just went out and started my private practice. It's been like
Mm.
that ever since
Beautiful.
1992. Yeah,
Yeah. And I love
yeah,
that. 'Cause on the one hand, I mean, you were working in the field of law and resolving conflict, and look at how now really you are working in the field of law of love and
yeah,
helping people resolve conflict and experience deeper joy there. How
yes,
awesome is that?
yes, absolutely. And so my practice unfolded. Marcia was in private practice. I was in private practice, and I think very quickly, I gravitated. I do see individuals, a fair number of individuals, but I have a special place in my heart for couples.
Mm.
I love seeing them succeed. I love seeing them work at loving each other, and I love helping them sort through the obstacles to doing that. There's just a place in my heart, and I think something like that, it's kind of like a vocation, kind of like a partner, that gets felt. People walk into my room with a couple and they just know that I'm holding that couple, and they don't always succeed. One or the other may be all done, and it may be the right thing for them to be all done. But what I can say is that there's just a natural love that comes from my being that just is there saying, all right, couple, I'm here for you and I love you. However, it's going to unfold for you guys. So let me support you in it, whether it's to end, move on, or whether it's to go forward and move forward into your love. I'm here for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just curious, what zaps your joy?
What saps my joy? First thing that comes to me is going to malls. Oh,
Oh, it's funny. That's the
yeah,
first time I've heard that response, but I do get it.
for some reason, just that whole energy, I have to go in, have a very specific goal in mind, and then come out. Otherwise, it's just, so that certainly does. What saps my joy? It's a good question. Another thing that saps my joy is being in environments that are overly mind dominated, overly cerebral, overly intellectual. I mean, I'm a pretty intellectual guy. I was a lawyer, so I sort of had to use that part of my brain a lot. But if I'm around that environment where there's no, it's all heady, it's all intellectual, it's all academic, that saps my joy.
Mm.
And I think for me, another area that saps it is if I'm in an environment that's like an urban environment where there's a lot of frenetic energy. In Boston, we have, it's one of the worst cities in the country for traffic. So if I'm in that kind of environment and there's just all that, you just arrive into that scene. And even if there's not a whole lot of traffic, there's this energy that's there that just kind of sucks and saps my joy. So those are the three things that come to me, Tina.
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting because as our audience is joining us in our juicy conversations, I'm sure many can relate to things or may think, oh yeah, actually, I hadn't thought of that, but that zaps my joy too. And that brings us to the flip side, because knowing what zaps your joy, you can look to, okay, well, what sparks your joy?
Yes. Well, did you want to talk about me personally, or do you want to talk about what seems to work for my relationships? What is this for me?
Oh, we'll get
personally?
into that in a second. Yeah, we want to hear, first of all, for
Okay.
you personally, what sparks your joy?
The thing that comes to me right away, Tina, is the thing that sparks me the joy the most in my heart is when I am situated in a place in my heart where I'm open to inspiration, where I'm open to the moment and whatever is meant to be given in that moment. And that's not always available to me because I'm too tired, I'm hurting, I'm too busy. I mean, so there's all these other places that are going on inside me. But when I'm in that place, in a space of openness and things just show up, I'll get a word, I'll get an image, I'll get an invitation to call this person or to write that or to do this. And I can feel that it's just coming from that quiet, intuitive, almost out of nowhere kind of space. That is the place where I'm the most joyful.
Beautiful. Yeah. So with everything that
The
you have,
place where, I guess I would say it's the place where I feel I'm the most true to myself, the most
mm,
faithful to my inner compass. That's what, like when I'm in that space, nothing else matters. Just,
mm,
it's just bliss for me.
yeah, connected in with your heart. Beautiful. Yeah. So with what you know now, everything that you've experienced along the way, if you look back at your life, was there a particularly challenging time that you went through where you wish that you could have known or experienced more joy?
Oh, well, the first moment that comes to me right away is before I was before Marsha, I was married in another relationship, living in Richmond, Virginia, and again, I was lawyering. I was in that phase, um, and there was this emptiness inside that just was sort of there, very kind of subtly gnawing away at me on the edges, and I wasn't really paying attention to it. There was emptiness. I was married at the time to my first wife, and there was emptiness in that relationship. We were just, and I had everything I was supposed to have to be this happy person, but it wasn't. There was something, empty. And so then on top of that, emptiness, we kind of got engaged with the neighbors and a lot of partying, and again, getting more distracted and more outside of myself and ourselves. And that culminated in my first wife getting involved with somebody else in the neighborhood. And so my whole life just kind of fell apart.
Hmm.
Here I was supposedly having everything, and then this marriage falls apart. I'm unhappy as a lawyer. I'm in this part of the world that really wasn't, it was down in Virginia, which is not where my soul was ever really at home with. So there was just this deep, deep emptiness
Mm. So
and lack
that's,
of
mhm.
joy.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because in a way, I mean, having had that experience, would you say that that played a key role in what you do now, which is, really just helping others also to discover how they can experience deep joy in their relationships?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It totally. Now I can look back and be thankful that all that heartbreak occurred, really be
Yeah.
deeply grateful for all that, because I don't think I would have grown. I wouldn't have, I don't even know if I would have even, I'm sure maybe at some point I would have pulled myself out of that world, but it was sort of the heartbreak and the misery that really led me to to go deep and
Mm,
go much more deeply inside myself, and to see, well, what is my life about then? What is my purpose? Where am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be with?
mm.
So just tremendous gratitude for that very, very profound suffering. At the
Yeah.
same time, of course, it left some scars, and you know certainly, um, the the hurt and the that happened with that first relationship created some mistrust for me, and opening my heart back up. So it took me a while to sort of open up to love and trust it again. So that was part of the process, and that it probably slowed me down and slowed down in some ways, the unfolding of my relationship with Marsha, you know, but no regrets,
Nice.
all gratitude for that.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, Mark. And I'm just wondering, I am sure too that many in our audience can relate to that, having experienced something, disappointment or heartbreak, and then having that mistrust, and the tendency then is to go into the defense pattern and keep the walls up and block that heart. So, what do you recommend? What have you found, or how do you support others with really connecting in with their heart and to open their heart to dissolve that mistrust so that they can experience that joy And how does
Yeah.
it last? These are a lot of questions all in one, but let's go
When
there.
you ask that question, Tina, are you thinking of it in terms of a relationship, in context of a relationship, or an individual?
Well, it would be both, wouldn't it? I guess, I mean, somewhere along the line, we will have all have had experiences where we didn't feel safe or didn't feel loved, so the walls came up. Then some point realizing, wow, looking often, how often does that then happen that you pull relationships into your life in one form or another to help dissolve that and
Yeah,
bring
they,
healing there?
you're absolutely right. They're so connected. And so I think the first thing that I would say that is essential for joy to be found and maintained in a relationship is making a good choice with who the partner is that you're with. And I mean, that may seem obvious, but my experience, in the last 25 to 30 years with so many couples is that people come together for a lot of different reasons.
Mm.
They come together because they're lonely. They come together because this person fits the profile of what they and their family think would be a great partner. They come together because of insecurities. They come together because, again, maybe others are sort of pulling at them, thinking, yeah, you should marry this woman or this guy. So it's really critical to really, again, come back to this trusting your intuition, trusting your gut, like really listening deep down, because it's deeper than, oh, I'm physically attracted to this person, deeper than, oh, this person seems to fill my emotional needs. It's deeper than, oh, we have so much in common. We play tennis together, and we like to read, and we like to do all these things. Those are all great, but they are not enough
Mm.
ultimately. And that's where you need to listen to this deeper place inside that's going to, at some point, and oftentimes very beginning of the relationship, and early on, or at some point, say to you, I feel home here. I
Mm.
feel home. Something feels right. Even though, ugh, I don't really like this person that much on some level, something feels right in my bones. And that's what you want to listen to, that deeper intuition, that deeper sense of rightness, that deeper sense of, and some people will say that, yep, she's the one, he's the one. And they will feel it early on, very, very deeply. And so that is a key, and the initial key ingredient for joy is that we're listening deep inside, because I don't know how many people I've met with who didn't listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really in my first marriage. I didn't listen to that. And even they will, as they go back and reflect on foundational moments when, like, at their wedding day, they'll feel inside like they knew that something was off. They knew something, they weren't peaceful. They didn't feel deep, but they ignored it. Now, how do you get out of it at this point? But somewhere inside their heart, they knew and didn't trust it. So
Mm.
it's trusting our intuition, trusting our heart, trusting that quiet. It's not often earth shattering. Sometimes it's not as earth shattering as that physical, like, oh, or that emotional, like, oh, this person is so good to me, or wow, look at what we can talk about together. And those are, I don't want to minimize those things. Those are wonderful things. They're just not enough to
Mm.
sustain joy over a long period of time. So that's the first thing. The second thing in a relationship, once that's there, is, I would say, and this comes back to the individual, your own individual self-care and self-realization. Because if you're not happy individually, if you're miserable, if you're not doing what you're meant to be doing, or you're not taking care of yourself, or you're kind of bound up in a lot of woundedness, then you're going to bring that into the relationship, and joy is impeded and blocked. So it requires two individuals. Once you know that you're at home, two individuals who are willing to embark on that individual journey of asking themselves, who am I? And why am I here on this planet? And what's my calling? Where am I? What's my purpose? Why am I here? And to listen to that voice. So, in my case, I remember in the first few years of being married to Marcia, and I was still lawyering and still trying to figure out what my purpose was. I'd come home and I had nothing. I was drained. I was exhausted. I was miserable. So it would take me all weekend to recover. And so what was I like as a partner during that time? I had nothing. And so even though there was this beautiful bond in this, I wasn't there. I was absent. I was just surviving. So that's the second thing I think it's really critical is two people who are saying, I don't want to just survive. I want to find out who I am, why I'm here, and I'm going to go forward. And when I do that, like now, I come home and I can have a long day of work and I can be tired, but deep down there's fulfillment. I'm coming home with my heart full. And so I have that to bring home with me. I bring that joy with me, that inner quiet. It's nothing dramatic. It's just a deep inner joy. So that's the second thing I would say is two individuals willing to embark on that journey of self-realization, of self-care. And then I think the third thing is that, and I just had this conversation with someone, in my office this evening, a relationship does take work. It's like for there to be joy. It doesn't take work if you just want to survive and you want to but it does take work. It's like working out. The person that I was with tonight was this monster guy who's just got these bulging muscles, and his wife was asking him for this and that, and he said, why don't you do this for me? Why don't you do that for me? He said to his wife, you have that ring on you, don't you? Well, then you know that I love you. And I said, no. Look at those muscles on your body. How many days a week do you work out? How long do you work out? And what kind of food are you taking in to allow those muscles to build? That didn't come from just sitting in your couch, wishing and hoping you had muscles. And the relationship's the same way. We need to give it energy, to give it, our attention, our presence. And one of the things that's one of the most precious things that we can help couples is helping couples learn how to have a gaze on the other that's a gaze at the best in them. Because so often in relationship, we of course see the worst in them. We're the primary beneficiaries of the worst in them, right? The things that drive us nuts, the things of, why do you have to be like this? Whether it's money or sex or cleaning or parenting, there's always these areas, almost always in every couple, where we just don't see eye to eye and we're very different. But how easy it is to overlook their beauty. And I don't mean their physical beauty. I mean that too, of course, but I mean their essence, their qualities, they've come into this relationship, they've come onto this planet with their own unique energy, their own unique qualities. And we have the ability to see that and call that forth in them, because a lot of times they don't see it. So I spend a lot of time helping couples activate that ability to be attentive to the best in the other and express it, because it's a powerful tool to awaken the bond and awaken them in their best self. So that's a really, really key ingredient. And along with that, I also help couples identify what, and it's, in the States anyway, a very popular book is called the Languages of Love, the Five
Mm.
Languages of Love. And so I help couples sort out, and recognize, well, what is your language? Is it touch? Is it gifts? Is it affirming words? Is it acts of service? Is it sharing thoughts and feelings together? What is it? And help them to see that maybe your partner doesn't receive love the same way you do. Like for example, Marcia, I can say all these wonderful things about her. Not so much. It doesn't really ring her bell that much.
Mm.
It's the it's action. It's being there in the nitty gritty that really reaches her heart. So we all have different ways of feeling loved. And so when couples are attentive to the best in the other, when they're tuned in to the kind of love that their partner, feels most reached by, then that activates the bond, activates, and it creates more joy. So, and then the other thing I think that's really helpful and very, very precious in that couple bucket, in terms of working at things like that workout, like that fellow coming in doing his muscles, is the skill of active listening. Really, really, I feel like we've, we talk about it and it's sort of like, common day language. Oh yeah, we listen to each other better. But I think if we really got that skill down, if we really knew the power of listening beyond what I agree or disagree with, and beyond, but yeah, but, and really kind of had that ability to sit there and go, really understand the other and hear them fully. And so one of the things that I do a lot with couples when they come in, whenever I sense there's an area where there's some divergence, is I turn to one of them and I say, so what did your partner just say?
Mm.
And I don't want you to interpret. I don't want you to comment. I don't want you to react. What did they just say to us? You don't need to get all the details, but what is it that he or she's really trying to communicate to us in this moment? And you can imagine, amazing how hard that is for people to get, yeah, but it's all wrong. She's not seeing it. I mean, she's full of shit, right? So they're so filled up with their own reaction to what's being said that it's very hard to enter into that experience of, so you really feel this way. And so when I said that, it really hurt your feelings and you felt like I was being selfish when I said that, etc., etc. So that's it opens the heart when we're listened to profoundly. And when in that opening of the heart, then the bond, again, all of these tools that I just mentioned in the couple piece are tools that just release the blockage a little bit, being attentive to the other, loving them on their terms, listening to them in depth. And once that blockage, the cool thing about bonds is that they're, without the blockage, they come up all by themselves. I used to see that, when Marcia and I had right in the throes of young children and running around with our heads cut off, and we wouldn't see each other all week long. And then we created this little time on Fridays when we'd be together, and we'd get together and we were like, growling by the end of the week because we had all this stuff built up and so we would just kind of take some time to sort of sort it out, process through all the different layers that were going on. And then once there was enough unpacking, all of a sudden, within a couple of hours, our hearts would be filled with love. It would just show up. We weren't trying to love. We were just dealing with what was present in our minds with this. And so it revealed to me so powerfully how a bond has a life of its own, and all it needs, kind of like that flower in the yard, as long as it has sunlight, as long as it has moisture, as long as it has soil that's somewhat filled with nutrients, and it doesn't have too many things blocking it, too many, cold weather, other plants covering it over so the sun can't get through. As long as that's opened up for them, that flower is going to flourish, and as does our bond. Our bond
Yeah.
flourishes. And one of the
Beautiful.
things.
Well, I know
Go ahead.
we could talk for hours, but we're getting to the end of our conversation here. We're going to have to do a follow-up call to dive in a bit deeper because I want you to share a little bit about the free gift, the journey of the 5 hearts, because I know we were having a conversation about that earlier. And this
Yes.
is so interesting. We could do a follow-up talk just about that, but just very briefly, can you tell us
Sure.
a bit
Yes,
about this
I'd
gift?
love to offer to our listeners a video that I did a few months ago, which just kind of lays out the journey of us as individuals and as a couple. And the journey really is that we have this beautiful original heart that we start with all of its gifts, its talents, its callings, its purpose. And then that heart arrives on the planet and is broken. And I just described a few of those moments on the planet for me, where my heart was broken. And it breaks us to the point where our original heart goes into hiding. And we then go into what I call the survival heart, which is our third heart. And from the survival heart, we shut down. We live in our mind. We are codependent. And that becomes misery. We can survive there, but it's not satisfying and ultimately unsustainable. And especially in our times today, the survival heart can no longer survive. Our planet can no longer survive in the culture, in the times that we are today. So we have available to us a heart waiting for us inside us that's very connected to our original heart. It's our heart-centered heart and our sacred heart. So in this video, I describe those 5 hearts and describe the journey that we're on together, all of us, and the journey of couples who are moving forward, crossing over out of survival heart into their heart-centered heart and into the sacred heart, which is the heart reopening again and finding its purpose, finding its soulmate, finding its talents, finding its joy. So you can find that on my website.
Yeah, we'll put the link below, and we'll put the link below so that everyone can experience this. And I really recommend listening to this, because I remember when you were sharing this with me, it was like just the way you talk about it as well. I could feel it in the different layers of my heart, and it's like coming back to that place. It was like, and it gives a sense of hope of what's possible and available for all of us if we're willing to just acknowledge what's there and embrace it. I love that.
Absolutely, Tina.
Oh.
And I remember you had that intuition, that what those hearts would look like, and that was exactly what was given to an friend of mine who created those hearts, which was the Russian dolls, those 5 hearts built up. I thought, wow, Tina, are you ever, hooked into your intuition?
It was beautiful. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh, well, such a joy. Well, one of the things that we've been inviting people who are joining us here in the Joy Evolution is to participate in the practical joy experiments. If you're not already a member of our private Facebook group, then I really encourage you to come and join us, because the invitation for the practical joy experiment is, maybe you heard Mark share something here today that you're like, whoa, yeah, I really would like to apply this in my life. I like to experiment with this. By receiving all this delicious inspiration from everyone, and then choosing something that sparks your joy and apply it in your life in an area where you would like to experience a breakthrough or experience greater joy. And perhaps here it could be looking at relationship. Then this is an opportunity for you to actually have the experience for yourself, what it takes to embody joy, so to bring it into your everyday life. So I highly encourage everyone to participate there with us. And if you're enjoying these juicy conversations, to share with your friends to come and join the evolution as well. And Oh, we could talk for so many more, so many more hours, Mark, about this juicy topic. I would love for you to maybe share a last little parting message with our audience about joy.
I guess I guess what I would just say that is, it's just been, my heart is just really full being with you, Tina. There's just a fullness in my heart from just being with you in this exchange, and that's what's most alive in me. The message is I'm just grateful for the fullness in my heart being with you.
Thank you. Likewise. Yeah, and my wish for everyone is that your heart be blessed with that fullness and that joy and that love and fulfillment that your heart desires, and that as we can support each other with that by having these beautiful opportunities to connect, what an amazing world we can create together, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful.
It's before us and it's happening.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark, so much for sharing your light and your joy and your brilliance here with us. And like I said, I know there's going to be more conversations to come. This is going to be fun.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
I'd love that. I would
Yeah.
love that, and I'd welcome that opportunity.
Beautiful. Well, until we meet again, many joyful blessings. And for everyone, go forth. Let joy be your guide to a life that is worth waking up for every day.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Matt.